It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Welcome, everyone, to the Divas That Care Network. I'm your host, Amy McKenzie. Today's show, The Wow of Women, features the remarkable journeys of women whose powerful and extraordinary choices have positively impacted people's lives. And I'm very excited to introduce our guest today. Joanne Clark out of Green Bay, Wisconsin is joining us. Let me tell you a little bit about her first. So Joanne, actually originally from Denver, Colorado, and she will tell you she's a diehard Bronco fan. She earned her BA in psychology. She has a business certificate from Creighton University, and she has worked in training and development, helping employees grow and progress in the workplace. She took time off to raise her children, which are now 24 and 21, and which was a great decision for her, which, as moms, we love hearing that. She decided to come back because she had a passion. She has a real passion to help people. And she felt she wasn't done. She wasn't done nurturing people. So she's put her focus onto coaching. And she really believes that her mission on earth is to help each other on the journey. And I think that really comes through in her message and what she's all about, to find the blessing in others. Joanne, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to the show.
Amy, thank you so much for having me. I've listened to several of your podcasts and your amazing, esteemed guests, so I'm honored to be among them today. I appreciate that.
Oh, well, thank you. It's you're only as good as the people you're talking to, and I just have wonderful guests, so there you go. So let's kind of wrap our heads around how you went from, you were kind of, I guess that's an HR position, to, a very extraordinarily focused and committed mom. And now this new branch of life for you is an intentional living coach, which I love. And you have a very specific line of focus within that. The title of this show, Empty Nesters Find New Purpose. It's very specific, and I love that. Can you share with us how this came about for you, that you became so focused in this area?
Absolutely. Like you said, I really, really believe in working with people and developing people. It's been my lifelong passion. But when my youngest went away to college and my oldest was then a senior in college, I started to feel this ache, like I wasn't mom in the capacity that I was mom before. Like you couldn't even take your kids school shopping anymore. It's to the point where when they're that old, you just deposit money in their accounts, right? And they just go buy their own stuff, and it's not even that looking for new crayons anymore. So I really felt a loss. And there is a grieving, I think, that moms especially go through at that time. And I wasn't prepared for the grief. I know that they leave home. I know that was our goal to begin with, and logically it all made sense. But this grief was like, it's such a sense of loss, and yet you're supposed to be happy for your kids, and I was. I think that moms feel it differently from dads. And so my husband was very much about, the kids are going to go and do what they've always wanted to do. We don't want them being 30-year-olds and living in our basement playing video games. And while all that is true, you just mourn the loss of that time you had with them. So I kind of flailed around a little bit. I did, I still had a job, and I carried on with my day, but I felt like like you said in the intro, I still had some nurturing left to do. And it's best not to try to nurture your adult kids. I think a lot of us have figured that out. So I decided to put my focus into helping the moms that were entering into this phase, because it took me about 2 years, really, to figure out where to go with this energy and extra time and interest. And so I've found it to be quite a large community of women that are really they are mourning, but also they've forgotten what their own passions are because they've put themselves on hold for probably decades and haven't come first in their own life for a long time. So when we get to this phase, it's like, well, what do I do? And there's a lot of soul searching, and it can be a difficult time for a lot of people.
I love that you're focusing on this. And, it's one of those areas that really hasn't had enough spotlighting. And so it kind of gets brushed under the carpet. And whenever there's an issue like that, I think that people tend to be a little more shy about sharing it because it sounds like it's too small of an issue. And all the big problems, which are very real, going on around us, definitely, are getting some airplay and deserve to. And you almost feel like embarrassed that my little thing, right? But, I really relate to what you're saying because I actually thought it was laughable. Oh, I'm not going to be displaced. I have a career. I'm in action with my life. I got all this stuff going on. I was completely bowled over by it. I, like you, did not expect. Yes, had no idea that this was unavoidable. It didn't matter what you're doing. Same thing. There was a part of me, yes, I was in action, I kept going, but I felt lost myself for a couple of years. And what it would have been like to have a group, to have your counsel, to have just even the conversation about, hey, this is normal. You're not like overreacting internally, even though you're being quiet about it. So I think the work that you're doing is very important. And so take us the next step. How are you getting the word out there and letting people know about this?
Well, thank you for the acknowledgement that it's real. It is so fascinating to me how much it doesn't get talked about because, like you said, it is a good thing, right? Like your kids are leaving this. Kind of like you've done your job well. Congratulations, Mom.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, exactly. Why are you laying in her room crying? So thank you for that acknowledgement. And I do think that really my next step in all of this, I did actually create a business as a personal coach to help people through it because there are some commonalities that we all face. And often, too, when you get to the point where you are an empty nester, that brings with it to some degree, issues of age, like perhaps you're looking at also menopause-related items or perimenopause, or you're looking at, what is the passion I had when I was young and in college and I thought I was going to save the world, or what hobbies do I want to get back to? So there are some common themes, and those can be group-related coaching sessions where we actually form bonds with women that talk through some stuff, and not only do you share ideas, but you can grow in friendships in a group setting. But in other ways, I offer one-on-one coaching because for some people, it's like, I just don't know what I want to do with my life. And in fact, I worked with one woman who realized that she had started to write a children's book decades ago, 15 years ago. And she, when I was working with her, decided to get that back out, and she's looking at getting that published. And so my whole role really is to be a companion on the journey for somebody so that you take this time and be productive with it, and so that you can show now how you're living your life, not that you're just waiting for your kids to come home or nagging your kids to text you. You have to become that interesting, vibrant person you once were, and I think a lot of us have forgotten how to do that. So I'm looking to do that through group coaching, online classes, one-on-one coaching. I've also started a Facebook page called Find the Blessings. And really, I started that because of the whole COVID issue where everybody was focusing on the negative. But in Find the Blessings, I do kind of share some uplifting live videos and try to help people through some common stress-related issues just to try to help people over the little humps in life. So I'm just trying to use my energy now to make a difference, especially for women and more specifically for older moms.
I love the way you put that. Being a companion on the journey. Because the reality is, we can't change that journey. That is really part of the process, whether you expect it or not. And whatever level you have it, right, there's going to be probably some sense of loss because things are changing. And it will never be, you won't be buying crayons again. It's true. Every now and then I send an Easter basket just for my own sake. But
exactly.
Right, I fill it with joke presents to get away with it, but really I'm doing it to fill my own, Mama Yaya on Easter, or what have you.
Right,
but,
we still have that part of us.
Yeah, it doesn't go away. So I love that you are redirecting, as you put it, I'm not done nurturing. And I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say it that way. I think that's really helpful. It's like, okay, so what can I nurture, whether it's in myself? And I think we do forget who we were. I mean, you said something earlier I also want to point out, which I thought was great, which is, bottom of your list during that time for decades. I actually realized one day that I wasn't even on my own list anymore.
Isn't that true?
I'm going to have to start from scratch, right?
Right.
And actually have a list that I'm on. Yeah, it was like, wow, there's a novel concept I wasn't even aware of because I was a very dedicated mom, as you clearly are, and that was great. It was very fulfilling. But, wow, there's a moment when you got to go, oh, hang on. So
right.
In your, group and one-on-one coaching, can you, kind of take us by the hand on this journey for a minute and pretend we're one of these people that is just starting out, facing that reality, or maybe it's, taking a little minute to hit us, enough so that we've actually found you and reached out, because we were one of the lucky ones to get some support with this. How might you get me started?
Well, initially I have, for anybody who hasn't spoken with me before, I usually have an introductory conversation just to make sure that she's comfortable with me and I feel like I could be helpful to her, so that if we feel like that isn't a good fit early on, we can both acknowledge that. But if we decide it's a good fit, I email 2 worksheets just to get the mom's brain started thinking about herself, because it's too big of a prospect to ask her, what do you want to do next? Because she doesn't know. Because like you said,
right.
You've not been on your own list forever, and you can't even answer that. So I can't start with a question that big. So the worksheets are a little bit about your current self and your state of where you are today, and a list of bucket list items, things you want to do, some in maybe 5 to 10 years, but some in the next 12 months, to kind of start thinking forward. It takes so much energy to actually get forward thinking when you're looking back, missing those kids and missing the mess in the living room that you used to yell at them for. So you have to get forward thinking for a little bit. And then we start with the one-on-one coaching. Then we start into, how did those worksheets make you feel, and where did that bring up maybe some things you want to talk about. And the one-on-one coaching, it's not designed for somebody to come to me and say, hey, I have this goal. Can you help me achieve it? It's more like, hey, I feel like I have something left in me to do, and I don't know what it is yet. And so the coaching process is something where I ask challenging questions and I help you peel back layers, but ultimately the client is the driver of the process. So, whatever she wants to focus on, if she's thinking of changing careers, if she's thinking of writing that book, or moving away from the family home and going to Arizona, or, whatever it is that she kind of has on her mind, we start with that. So that is the one-on-one coaching. And really, I don't know about you, but I can't very well take criticism and heavy questioning from my husband because it feels too personal, or your friends sometimes have an ulterior motive. But if you have a coach who is also an accountability partner to ask you questions like, okay, well, what does that look like financially for you to move to Arizona? And I don't have a biased outcome whether you go or not, then you can answer those questions with me in a realistic way and not a defensive way. And together we can, create some steps for you to take to get you where you want to go, and not worry about somebody's judgment of what you're doing. And I just have found the coaching process to be extremely helpful. Like I said, in order to be a companion, so that you talk through some ideas, you have a sounding board, but you're not feeling judged all the time.
That's so great. Yeah, non-judgmental sounding board. And I just kind of pictured like a ledger, because ledgers have no opinion. You can put pros on the left and cons on the right and just look together and see what's there. But to do that by yourself without the feedback never really feels like it's getting the job done. Nowhere near as effective as when you could, actually share that. Hear what. Do you think part of it is hearing what it sounds like when you say it out loud to someone else?
Yes.
Without judgment?
I've had people give me that feedback, like, oh my gosh, now that I'm telling you this, or, they'll say different words, but it's always like, now that I'm saying this out loud, this sounds crazy. Or now that I'm really putting these thoughts in order, I'm really excited about it. So speaking out loud is a huge part of it.
That reminds me of one of my favorite mentors in theater, and he, as a director, he's a very famous director, and he said, what he had learned in working with people was that you just say yes. So no matter how crazy the idea is, that is never going to work, you say yes and let the person explore it fully, and sure enough, the next day they're going to come back to you and say, that idea I had about streaming the toilet paper behind me as I cross the stage? Well, I know you loved it, but I'm kind of thinking I want to move in a different direction, right? People will get there because you gave them the space, right?
Right. Which is, I think, what we try to do with our kids, really,
So, tie me in. I'm not sure what you mean.
Oh, with the trying to say yes, it's like, I have this idea for the science fair.
Okay.
And in your head, you're thinking, there's no way that's going to fly. And then you talk through it with them, and you say, okay, well, get the permission from your teacher or whatever it is. And then the kids come back to you and say, oh, yeah, that's not going to work. But at least you didn't squish their dreams in the meantime.
Right, exactly, yeah. Yeah, because, it is true, though, when we have something sort of as a fantasy in our head, it looks great till you try and put it on paper, so to speak, or communicate it with someone. So I could see that would be really valuable. Do people discover, like, in your presence, then remember things that they forgot they wanted to do? Is that part of it also?
Yes. It's actually interesting for people to remember, gosh, wait a minute, as I'm talking through this, it's fascinating to watch. And I do a lot of coaching just over the phone so that there's no pressure. A person could be sitting in her pajamas or, I don't care. But I can hear the inflection in her voice, and she'll be talking through something, and she'll say, for instance, that woman, she's like, I have a book that I started to write. And when we first started speaking, the book wasn't on the forefront of her mind. But it was kind of that realization, like, I put that on hold for so long, I forgot it was there. Kind of like when you find some treasure in the back of the closet when you're cleaning because it's not been in front of you for so long. Like, I forgot about this. I want to reinvest myself in exploring this opportunity.
Mm-hmm. So you're really giving people the space to reinvent themselves, maybe with some of the old, bells and whistles that they had in the past, but or new material, so to speak. But it's really giving a kind of a safe, secure space to rediscover ourselves.
Absolutely. And in fact, I like to think of it as
huge hole.
Pardon me?
Oh, and then because it's like a huge hole when your children leave. It's like this big gaping. What is this big gaping? It feels like a wound. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's like we get to be 20-year-olds again, right? Like that new the world is our oyster thing, but now we have more wisdom and maybe a little more money.
Right. That's true. So you're also able to flip to the positive, being able to show. Because I do feel like, it's easy to feel like, I could have gone down that road. Well, I'm done. I did that. I did a great job. She was doing great. And, I could see how alluring that kind of is because it's a disconnect. Maybe that's the word I've been looking for. It's a really big disconnect there for a bit. Yep. And I think that I love that sort of attitude that if you're bringing people back to a place where they remember, as you said it earlier, right, what you used to be passionate about. Remember that person? Thought you could save the world, that one?
Yes.
You're reintroducing people to themselves, aren't you?
Absolutely. That's exactly it. Yes. It's a great way to describe it.
Wow. Yeah, it's really wonderful. And, sure, there's some books out on it, but I don't, and which can be very helpful. but I don't know that anything is ever going to be as meaningful as having that immediate in-person, or even if it's over the phone, that human contact that's so direct, to be able to, one, just really measure yourself against another of, okay, so this is not crazy, this is kind of normal, okay, great. Now what do I do with this, and have some direction to get reconnected to really who they really are. What a wonderful thing that you're bringing forward. I love this. Now, I hope you're planning on writing your own book at some point. What are your future plans?
I think
what's next for you?
It's on my bucket list.
Okay. Because I think you've got some approaches here that are really relatable. The whole companion concept on this journey is wonderful. Reconnecting people to themselves. Normally we're trying to get over ourselves, it seems like, in coaching. So in a sense, it's just kind of the opposite. You're really holding up a mirror to that young person, right, pre-motherhood. And so you have some takes on this that I think are really refreshing. It'd be very meaningful, I think, for people if they, because you can't coach everybody. That way you could share some of this with a larger audience. Yeah. It's terrific.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And I'm glad that, it sounds like your husband is supportive, even if he didn't necessarily go through the same process. He was a witness to it. I bet he's pretty proud of you because you turned it all around, and now you've made it a service for others. That's incredible.
Oh, thank you so much. A husband.
Yeah, when you think about it, when we go through stuff, we don't always make it to someone else's benefit. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you there. But you didn't just go through it and get over it yourself. Yeah, you've turned it into something that is benefiting people in that exact same situation. And those are the stories I just love. You took your challenge and you made it into a pearl. Good for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So we are getting close to the top of or bottom of the hour, whichever it is. And I know that you have a lot to share, and we could go on probably for a lot longer. But, do you have anything you really want to, leave someone who's just now entering into this? We can talk about how great it is to get through it, and once you've gotten connected and remembering your passion and who you were and what excited you and all of that. But that very, very beginning part, when, you don't actually care about any of this yet because you're grieving.
Right.
That part.
Right.
Yeah. Well, talk to me just a little bit about how, Yeah, what I would say to those moms, because, we're getting to, it's going to be fall again. They're going to be heading off maybe with some new COVID rules. But, I think you do hit grief and loss, and I think in order to heal properly, you need to experience it fully. So it's okay to cry and, go sit in your kid's room and look at the pictures from soccer or football or whatever it was. And it's okay if you break into tears out of the blue when you're driving and you hear a certain song. And I think too often people try to move through the pain, and so they try to stay busy, or they try to not acknowledge it really. And I think the first step to leading a full life after raising kids is acknowledging that there is a lot there, and it's not a death, and so that's not equal to somebody who's lost a child, to death. But there really is a grieving. And so if you can find other people and allow yourself to commiserate, but then maybe set a date, all right, after September, I'm not going to wallow anymore, or, find a group or connect with a coach who can help you and go ahead and grieve, but then realize you don't have to stay in that mode, and you're more interesting to your children if you develop the next phase of your life and can be interesting to them when they come home or when they call you. That's a good point. Oh, two great points. Okay, so first of all, I can see a chapter named Permission to Wallow. Wonderful.
I'm writing that down.
Set a date. Yeah, it's so great. And I think, that could actually apply to a lot of things that we are trying to recover from. So that is great advice, not just for empty nesters, but I think anything that we're, really having to deal with, whether it's a breakup, a heartbreak, or, whatever, the loss of a job, anything that we might mourn at whatever level. That's a great way to put it. Set a date, let yourself have at it, and then get on with it. Become interesting. It's another chapter for you that you've just given us. Right? It's wonderful. Because I think, maybe people don't realize that, and it's really true. It's really hard to hold a conversation with someone who has no connection to what's happening in the world or their own lives or what they're up to or what they're committed to. Boy, this is just great stuff, Joanne. And,
thank you so
I love
much.
your authenticity. Yeah, really. I'm so glad that you took the time to join us. Any parting words for our listeners before we let you go today?
Well, I think part of what moved me in this direction was a podcast I listened to from Brooke Castillo. She's a coach that is fairly well known. And she said that mama birds don't return to an empty nest. They go and they live their lives. And I thought, wow, that's so true. Mama birds don't return to an empty nest. So I think this is just our time. This is what we thought of when the kids were little and there was food on the floor and everybody was crying. We thought one day I can do what I want to do.
Right.
And so if we spend our time looking backwards and wishing our kids were home again, we're going to miss this great gift we've been given. And so hopefully I can help other women realize the blessing that this time is, and we can all go be really wildly dynamic, interesting women together.
Wildly dynamic and interesting. Oh, that's beautiful. Jen, I'm just in love with you. I love your spirit, your intention, and your commitment to take what you've gone through and make it work and help other people. Encourage our listeners to look for you on Facebook, the group Find the Blessings. I'm sure you'll find many there. Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom with us today and taking the time to be with us.
Amy, thanks so much for the time to be with you. It's an honor.
Well, I'm going to just say in closing, again, we thank Joanne Clark. Empty nesters, you can find new purpose. Reach out to her if that would be meaningful to you. Connect her with people you know or having children leaving home or about to. Get ahead of the game and become interesting. So I want to thank you, Joanne, and all of our listeners for making the show possible. Of course, our producer, the founder of Divas That Care Network, Candace Gish. Candace redefines the word diva to mean a courageously self-assured woman. Doesn't happen by itself, right? So sometimes we need that helping hand. We need that companion to go through the journey with us. Thank you for that, Joanne. Divas That Care Network offers women of all walks a platform for sharing their voice in the world. And we invite you to join us. Please visit divasthatcare.com, hear more inspiring stories, and who knows, maybe one of these days you'd like to add your voice to the conversation. We would love to have you. With that, signing off for this show. Take care, everyone. Until next time, and bye for now.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.